What is going on, everyone? Hope everyone is doing well here on a, Saturday night. All right, we have 22 people in the show. If you guys can give this a thumbs up, it does help the reach. Not going to ask too many times tonight, but it does help gain some people into the chat and have a better, more diverse conversation. So, couple things. If you haven't been here before, if you can, or as a reminder, if you have been, if you can please give as much clarification as you can on your questions. So DraftKings, FanDuel, season long, PPR, non-PPR, etc., as well as options. If you're in a season long league, happy to answer the questions. Just need to know opportunity cost as well. So the more that you can provide, the better I can give you guidance. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me just pull up one quick thing and then we can go ahead. All right. So first question, Allen Lazard or Robinson PPR? Robinson or Lazard? It is Allen Lazard for me. I just don't trust Allen Robinson. I mean, the guy had one good game. He's not. I mean, he's well past his prime, and his floor is 1 for 12 or 2 for 23, which are the games that we've seen. So, can't get yourself to start Barkley again in cash. Well, if you don't, you're going to be facing a lot of him. So. Yeah, I mean, realistically, he's going to be incredibly popular. I have running back Barkley and Taylor, and who's my third guy? Third guy is Barkley, Taylor, and I'm looking it up really quickly. Josh Jacobs. That is my three. Jamal Williams or James Robinson. That one's easy, Kurt. It's Jamal Williams for me. I think Jamal Williams is a really good play. I think he's expensive, but they've priced in his price there. But well, look at me go. They've priced in his price. Could you speak more eloquently, Devin? If I look at James Robinson, he's $7,800. Like you're paying a significant premium for what he's already done. Where Jamal Williams, 74 is still a steep price, but at 78, I would rather have Saquon at 81. A guy I really like this week is Aaron Jones at 73. I think he's in a really good spot. So there's a couple guys, but James Robinson, not really on my radar. I think that, the Jaguars going up against Philly are probably going to be behind for a lot of that game. So how much are they actually going to be able to run the ball? I honestly don't know. I think the price is just a little bit too high. Allen Lazard or Dortch? Greg Dortch. Probably Lazard. Yeah, I would probably go Lazard. We just don't know what this offense is going to look like. Rondale's there. Zach Ertz is getting all of the red zone targets. He has, I believe, 8 this year, and no receiver has more than 4, which is Marquise Brown. So they're still going to go to Ertz. They did it last year. He's going to be the primary guy in the red zone. He only has 1 touchdown so far this year, but he had 6 targets over his last 2 games in the red zone, and none of those were for a touchdown. So I do trust Lazard, I guess, a little bit more. I just don't know what that Arizona offense is going to look like. Pollard or Dobbins? Give me Pollard until further notice. J.K. Dobbins, I mean, what is his volume going to be? That's the biggest question. And going up against a Buffalo defense, like that's going to be a tough one. Which 3 to start? Season long PPR. A lot here. Christian Kirk is definitely. Brandon Cooks is definitely. So it comes down to Ayuk, Duvernay, Julio, Zay. Ayuk, Julio, Zay, or I'm not doing Olave. Not with Andy Dalton. It's Zay Jones for me, believe it or not. I think you could play Ayuk, but I don't know how many bonus points for long touchdowns. I can't really factor that in too much. It's sort of going to be a little bit lucky if that happens. So Julio, who knows with his health? Like, it's hard to even predict. Duvernay, I get the long touchdowns, and if it's something like a long touchdown completely wins your week, then maybe you could think about Duvernay, but I wouldn't go chasing for those long touchdowns. What's the sensible thing to do with Chris Godwin this week? Yeah. Well, we sort of don't know, right? We don't know, is he actually going to be playing? The Buccaneers have sort of been upfront about injuries. So I'm hoping in Adam Schefter's Twitter dump that he does every Sunday at like 4 a.m., we hear something about Chris Godwin. If he's playing, I think it depends on what your other options are, but certainly you're probably going to want to play him in your season-long leagues and not play him in DFS because you can't really trust him. Gabriel Davis or Isaiah McKenzie? Gabriel Davis. I get the Isaiah McKenzie stuff, like he has upside, but do we really think in Isaiah McKenzie's sixth season, he's all of a sudden going to start being like a 7-catch guy or whatever he had last week? No. I mean, part of it was that was a close game. Part of it was Josh Allen threw for 400 yards. Part of it was Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis both had poor games. So, Davis wasn't 100% healthy. I don't think he's 100% healthy now. But, yeah, it's Davis for me by a pretty wide margin. It's one of those things, though, if you think you're behind and you need like a miracle, then go with Isaiah McKenzie. But how did it feel to do a solo show this week? Not great. I was sort of all over the place for those that listened to it. I know a lot of people loved it. A lot of people loved seeing sort of my process and the behind the scenes, and that's all out there on the Power Grid is what PL is talking about. But I miss my guys. Like part of doing a show like that is partially just talking with guys that have become your friends over the last, I don't even know how long we've been doing the Power Grid, since 2016, maybe. Like John and I have been doing it since it started. So I think that was 2016. So yeah, because Sigmund hosted originally, and then Austin Lee did it for a few years, and then Dan Bach did it last year, and this year we're going with Ryan. So yeah, we've been doing it for such a long time that I look forward to talking with those guys every week. Will I do something solo in the future? Time is just the issue. Doing a full-time job and then trying to do a football job too, and trying to have some time for family, it just is a lot. Yeah, it was different. I don't know how it came through on audio. It probably not well. I didn't really think about that one, to be honest, but it's hard to do a solo show well. Like I thought about doing traditional. I thought about doing it a couple different ways, and some of you guys probably are just here for Q&A and don't really care about what I'm saying here. But some behind the scenes just on like podcasting and how things go through your mind, and I try to be an open book. I thought about doing like a skit where I would debate myself, but then I thought it might come across a little bit like schizophrenic. And then I thought about just doing a normal show, but that's kind of boring and sort of just repetitive of what my articles are on a given week. And so I just said, hey, let's just talk about process and talk about tools and talk about how I go about building a lineup on a given week. So that's all out there. If you guys aren't a subscriber of Football Guys, I think it gave a pretty good detail of some of the things that I use on Football Guys on a weekly basis. So go over there and check out the Power Grid this week, even if you are a subscriber and just say, hey, I don't really use my Football Guy subscription. I've had dozens of people that have reached out to me and say, hey, I didn't even know some of this was available. So, any thoughts for your first time? You're not, I would say have fun. I would say enjoy the lineup building process. So DFS at its core, yes, you can win a lot of money. Yes, they flaunt it and say, hey, you can become a millionaire, blah, 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 blah. At its core, you should do it for fun and wager what you're comfortable wagering. And if you end up hitting something and become rich off of it, great. But build something that you're going to feel good in. Stack. I would say build a stack. So what I mean by stack, if you're not familiar with it, have a quarterback, a wide receiver / tight end that the quarterback is throwing to. And then I like to have a wide receiver or tight end on the other team. This week, for example, I did change it up a little bit. One of my stacks this week is Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, and who's the third guy? Brandon Cooks. So, you can do it a number of different ways. You could look at another game that I like this week is sort of under the radar in terms of popularity, but I do think that something like a Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, and Devontae Adams stack could be interesting. So definitely enjoy it and don't get frustrated. Like try to understand like how other people are building lineups. So look at some people who are doing really well in the tournament and try to understand how they engineered into that specific lineup instead of just saying, hey, I didn't win any money and closing your app. If you really get involved in like how the process, it can be a lot of fun, but you're probably not going to win like immediately. Could. I know people that have won $1 million on their first or second week doing it. So there is some luck involved, just like anything else. How do I feel about playing Barkley and Khalil Herbert in the same DK cash lineup? No, I think it's fine. Look at Dameon Pierce and Khalil Herbert last week. They both crushed. So, yeah, we're going to time this person out. Let's not rip on other people's questions. Saying something like that's a suck question is not going to be tolerated here. Eckler is the play in cash. Ooh. I don't, I think Eckler is interesting. I think he's more of a GPP play. I like him more on DraftKings just because of the full point PPR. But I see where you're going with that. I just don't have, at his price, I don't know that I have what it takes to put him in there. I would rather take the risk on Saquon. I think some people are going to go to him, so you probably won't be the only one. But at 8,400, I think that's just a little too expensive. Like Jonathan Taylor at 87, I feel pretty good about. McCaffrey, if he was healthy, I would feel good about it. I don't really at 8,800. But there's guys below there like Saquon, like I talked about Saquon, Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones, Khalil Herbert. Even going down the list, Dameon Pierce at 68, Josh Jacobs at 65. Those are sort of the guys that I'm looking at in cash. Thoughts on Rondale Moore? We've talked about it a little bit. How do we know is the problem. Like, Rondale should be out there. So if you want to take a tournament shot on Rondale Moore, fine. But in like a cash game setting, I couldn't do it. You're out on Jamal Williams, because you combine for one target. Yeah, I mean, second year in his offense, you would think he might be a little bit better. We've seen him more involved this year, and I know that I don't love him. I think his price, because of what he did last week with 87 yards and 2 touchdowns, has significantly increased that price. So he's not a must play. I don't have him in my FanDuel cash lineup. I probably won't have him in my DraftKings cash lineup. But he's not a bad play. 6,600 on, or no, he is 6,100 on DraftKings. I think that's a much more tolerable price than what he is on FanDuel. So, what about what about a cheaper DraftKings Jet stack? The problem is it's Wilson's first game back. And I think you have too many Jets in your lineup if you have 4. Like, I don't know that it's an upgrade, but against Joe Flacco to Wilson, I don't know that. And that's the problem. Do you want to take a shot on Elijah Moore? I think he's probably the most interesting given the chemistry that him and Wilson had last year. So if you wanted to do like a Wilson, Moore, Deontay stack, I think that's fine. But going all in seems a little crazy. Full PPR, need flex, Dobbs, Judy, Dortch, Godwin, Gordon, or Sanders. It's probably Sanders. But if I look at Sanders, Judy, or Godwin are probably the guys that I would consider there. Yeah, it's Miles Sanders for me. John, if I knew what your lineup should be, then I would win all the money. It's 500 people in a lineup. I would take the best stack that you feel comfortable with. I wouldn't get crazy. I would say, okay, I think this Baltimore Buffalo game is going to be the highest scoring game. A lot of people are going to think that, so you'll probably have 50 to 100 people that'll stack that game. But if you can get different enough that if it works, then you'll win that tournament. You may want to look at like a secondary option, like stacking the Philly game. But I would stack something. I just wouldn't build that crazy of a lineup. There's going to be people in a 500-person GPP that copy and paste their big money or big person GPP into that. And they're going to do some wacky things, and that's going to probably eliminate like 50 people in that tournament. So build the best lineup you can. Treat it like a cash game sort of, but just like a little more correlation. Bateman, McLaurin, or Olave. McLaurin, I believe. McLaurin, Bateman. Yeah, McLaurin for me. Conklin, Irv Smith, or Tunyon. Oof. Irv Smith. Or Conklin. Yikes. That's really close. I would probably just go with the best quarterback there, which is, well, let me think about this. I might go with Irv Smith just because you'll know what you have before the games start, which is like always a benefit. Because if you know, hey, Irv Smith had a great day, I feel more comfortable with McLaurin. If you say, hey, Irv Smith got 0, then I may go to Bateman because you'll need a bigger game, and I think he has more upside than McLaurin, which is weird saying that. I have all 3 of those tight ends extremely close, but yeah. 30-person, only the top person wins. So if it's a week, what I would say is you really should know your if it's a league that's running every single week, you should know your opponents and how they're building lineups. If they're building some wacky things, then I would probably just go with like a cash lineup, maybe a little more correlation, but not go something that's off the wall. If you know, hey, we have a group of Chicago people and they're all Bears. Well, that's a bad example, but let's just say we're from Buffalo. You're from Buffalo, and there's a bunch of Bills fans in there. You know the Bills are going to be more highly rostered than they otherwise should be. So something to think about as you build your lineup, but without knowing the specifics, it would be hard to gauge. But I would try to build it like a cash game with a little more upside, to be honest. Like instead of I would never play a Deontay Johnson, for example, in that contest, just because his ceiling isn't high enough compared to the priced players around him, if that makes sense. Yeah, everyone's good, Artemis. We got in touch with Phil and Ryan this week, so they are good. Wide receivers in cash, I think there's a bunch of them. I like the mid range this week. I can't really afford the Stephon Diggs, so I'm looking at guys like a CeeDee Lamb or Mike Williams or Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper, those types of guys. And then there's not a ton that I love on the low end either, which is weird. So like on the low end, Josh Reynolds is probably like Josh Reynolds, Romeo Doubs, Zay Jones, and Richie James are the guys that I'm targeting. So, and trying to decide between those has been a challenge for me. I think right now I like Reynolds and Richie James the most, but who knows if that's going to change overnight. There's Amari Cooper. Keep it going this week. Is he worth his price on DK? I think so. Who else are they going to throw to, right? So they have him and they have David Njoku. That's pretty much it. Donovan Peoples-Jones hasn't really done anything. David Bell hasn't really done anything. Kareem Hunt, he'll have his moments, but Amari Cooper had a bad week one, but they came out and they said they need to get him the ball more. So I really like Amari Cooper until his price goes up a little bit more. Yeah. Probably London. Really like Drake London this week. It's probably Ertz to Hawkinson, to be honest, Harry. I don't like if you wanted to go Jacobs to Sanders, maybe I could see that. I don't like Dylan or Zeke more than Jacobs. I like London more than Cooks. And if you wanted to spin off of my cash game lineup in one direction, it might be Hawkinson. Just because who knows Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, DeAndre Swift are all out. We assume a lot of that's going to Jamal Williams, but they're still projected to score 25 points this week, which just blows my mind. Who's getting those points? It has to be Reynolds. It has to be Hawkinson. It has to be Jamal Williams, I guess. But how? That's the one I'm just struggling with the most as far as how in the world does Detroit score 25 points? Okay, 66 people here, half hour in. If you guys can give this a thumbs up, I'm only going to do it twice this week, but it does help the show. So if you guys can do that, I don't ask for much around here. How much am I taking into consideration the weather in Baltimore and Philly? Well, let's look at our lines and see how they've moved. So if I look at what the totals have done, I'm not going to pretend to be a meteorologist here, but I'll just show you guys what I'm actually looking at. So if I just share my screen, now that I know how to do that, let's go to Entire screen. Share. So if I go to covers, you said the Ravens opened at 55, down to 51.5. So there is some concern there. I think it's also been bet down a little bit. And then what was the other one that you asked for? Philly. Yeah, Philly's gone down too. Philly's probably more concerning just because it's gone down to 45.5. And if I look at NFLweather.com, Eagles light rain, but 15-mile-an-hour winds. Rain throughout the entire day. Yeah, I mean, there's a slight concern, but there's do I feel like there's in a GPP? I think it could be enough to move off of it, but they're still the top projected scoring teams, right? So Philly still projected to score, I believe, 26 points, something like that, and Buffalo still, I believe, is the highest projected scoring team on the slate. So probably not all that concerned, but in a GPP, I do think that you could probably use that as justification to fade. In a cash game, I wouldn't. I mean, there just aren't that many good games this week is the problem. James Robinson or Jeff Wilson, full point PPR. Let's look. I believe it's Robinson. I just want to make sure. Robinson versus Wilson. It's closer than I thought. I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson. I like playing a guy in the last game. It gives me some. I have Wilson projected like a half point higher, but I like playing someone in the last game just because it's fun. He's in a little bit better matchup against the Rams than against the Eagles, but like any Detroit wide receivers, the only one I do like is Reynolds. I mean, who else do they even have? Detroit depth chart. I mean, it's pretty bleak. I mean, Quintez Cephas, Khalif Raymond. Khalif Raymond's a definite no. I mean, he's a deep threat guy. Tom Kennedy, like this is who we're dealing with. Tom Kennedy's a 26-year-old who has six career receptions. Yeah, no, thank you. But as I always say, if you find that one guy that no one is on, somebody has to catch the ball. So, yeah, if you guys can like it, that would be great. Kittle or Knox? Worried that Kittle has to block a lot? No, don't be worried about that. Play Kittle. Rashad Penny, Josh Palmer, Kyle Pitts. I'm coming around on Rashad Penny. I know it's risky, but Detroit's allowed the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I think it's interesting. I really like Kyle Pitts this week too. Cash game, I would go Penny. GPP, I would go Pitts. How about that? Jeff Wilson for sure. And Breece Hall or Tyler Lockett. Let's go with, if you need safety, go Breece Hall. No, just go Tyler Lockett. Yeah, go Tyler Lockett either way. I have him. It's a wide enough gap for me. I do like Tyler Lockett this week. It's a wide enough gap. I think that Detroit-Seattle game is pretty high scoring. So, FanDuel cash 7,100 left for flex. Harris, Javonte, Pierce, or Penny. Javonte? I like Harris a lot too. It's between those guys for sure, but probably Javonte. Georgia's in a close one. Who stands the most to gain from the absence of Michael Thomas, Olave, or Kamara? I don't trust Andy Dalton at all, so probably Kamara. Like, how much has he been working with Olave? Could it be Jarvis Landry? Could be. Conklin or Schultz? Schultz. Yeah, Schultz by a pretty wide margin for me. Is Gallup staying out of lineups until we see he's playing a full workload? Yeah, I think he is. I mean, I like Cooper Rush this week. I think he's interesting against this Washington defense. I like CeeDee Lamb based on his price on FanDuel, but it depends on if you're in a season-long league, if that's what the question is. It depends on who you're starting over him. But how do I trust Michael Gallup at this point? Like, we just don't know what we don't know. Is Rashad Penny viable? Yeah, I think he is. Kenneth Walker, isn't getting the volume there. Detroit's allowed the most points to opposing running backs. We are really far behind on questions. So I'm about 15 minutes behind. So I need to do some catching up. So I'm going to go quick here. We do have 20 minutes left in the show. So 73 people here. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go until 10 o'clock. So if you get your question in by 10, no matter how many questions we have, I will answer every single one of them. At 10 o'clock, I'll probably start cutting it off and then only answering the questions that went in before that. So that's the way we do it every week. Olave or Herbert? Herbert. Do you have a defense? Depends what site. So FanDuel, I'm going way down. I'm going with the Cardinals. Might go with the Raiders if I find an extra upgrade. DraftKings, I've been finding that I have a little more money on DraftKings this week because I like some of the cheaper wide receivers, but some options. I think the Titans against the Colts are interesting at 2,500. I think the Bears might be interesting at 27. And then I think either the Bills or the Browns are interesting. No, scratch the Browns. With no Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, they can get out. Yeah, I agree with that. Any concerns with top quarterbacks all possibly being in windy games? We talked about that a little bit. No. Is it ideal? Not really. But Josh Allen played at Wyoming. Yeah, I'm getting him and Carson Wentz mixed up. Josh Allen played at Wyoming, so no concerns there from a win standpoint. And he plays in Buffalo, so this will not be the worst weather that Josh Allen sees this year. Jalen Hurts drives so much value through his legs that I'm not really that concerned. Lamar, could it affect Lamar? Maybe. It's already probably the most difficult matchup of the three, but he drives a lot of his value through his legs as well. So I'm not that concerned. FanDuel Cash, Herbert, Najee, or Jacobs. They're in different price areas. So if you can afford any of them, I probably go Herbert. Yeah, I probably go Herbert over. Yeah, if you can afford any of them, I go Herbert. But I can't because I'm playing Taylor and Barkley, so I'm going Josh Jacobs. Need 2 out of 3, Ramondre, Ayuk, or Singletary. I don't know if it's PPR or not, so let's assume it is Ayuk or Singletary. We're going to go Singletary for sure, and then I'm probably going to go Ayuk. I think Ayuk is – if you need safety, if you feel really good about your matchup and say, hey, I just want 7 or 8 points, then go with Ramondre. But if you think it's a close matchup or you think it's one that you're behind on, then go Ayuk. Brady or Mariota? Oh my. I love Mariota this week. If Godwin isn't playing, we're going Marcus Mariota. Put it that way. If we don't have clarity on Chris Godwin, then we're going Marcus Mariota. I don't know. I think with no Jadeveon Clowney and no Myles Garrett, Mariota has a pretty good game. FanDuel Cash. I like it. There's a lot of guys that I have. Patterson or Rashad Penny? Well, is Patterson going to play? We sort of need to hear that one out. So they did call someone up off the practice squad this morning. We don't have clarity. He was added to the injury report late on Friday, so I don't know if he's going to play. But if Patterson plays, I'm playing Patterson. I like Penny as a nice backup though. They're both good price. Elliott's interesting. Pollard, I never know. I mean, I think Pollard, you're chasing points. If you're a little bit of a dog chasing his tail a little bit, 13 carries for 105 is definitely intriguing. But, his prior 2 games, he had less than 10 carries. Zeke has a little more consistency, but I don't know. I'd rather just play Josh Jacobs, to be honest. I don't have a good read on that one. I typically just try to avoid like the committee situations in DFS, right or wrong. Like it probably has bitten me before because I'm sure there's a case to be made like we saw last week, but I feel like more times than not, you're just chasing it. Like I don't think I've ever started a Patriots running back, to be honest. I don't know who this sun god is. I'm assuming that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's going to rain. Hearing it's a little windy, 15 miles an hour winds. Nothing crazy. Any thoughts on playing Najee and Penny together as low-owned? Yeah, I think it's fine. Any word on Patterson? Your guess is as good as mine. We'll know tomorrow. It's a 1 p.m. game, so we'll know tomorrow. Full point PPR, one flex, Judy Kirk, Lockett, Sanders. Yikes. That's a lot of options. It's between Kirk, Lockett, or Sanders. I'm not playing Judy. Coming back from injury and just Sutton's the number one guy there. So Kirk, Lockett, or Sanders. Christian Kirk for me. They paid him a boatload of money, and they're going to have to throw the ball against Philly this week. 6 for 117, 6 for 78, 6 for 72. A lot of consistency, even though part of my flaw is I associate Christian Kirk with inconsistency and deep threats, and he hasn't been any of that this week. Can you summarize what might be a good way to approach 3-entry max tournaments at DK? You can do it a couple different ways. One, you can build it off of a core. So, like, build a core of players and have deviations off that core. So, if you really like 4 players, have all 4 of those in all 3 of those lineups, and then build variations around it. A lot of people do that. Or you could build 3 completely unique lineups. Like I know some people that'll do 3 lineups where 0 players overlap, and they'll stack 3 different games, and their auxiliary players will be all different so that it gets them to the most exposure as possible. I like the first option better just because if I hit on my core, which should be the players you feel the most confident in, sometimes we're putting in players that like we like but don't love, and you sort of want to say, hey, like these players are really close to each other. But if I hit on my core, I have 3 chances that are really solid. So whether that core is like, hey, I'm going to game stack the I don't know, pick a game, but and build everything else around it 3 different times. I think that's what like some people do, but either one can really work. Josh Reynolds or Romeo Dobbs. Josh Reynolds. Why does Cooper Rush feel like a great GPP play? Because he is. I mean, the only challenge is he doesn't have that elite upside, but especially at DraftKings, if he can get 300 yards, I really like him. I'm really sleepy or really stoned. I've been writing since about 4 a.m. So probably sleepy. Well, I don't feel that sleepy. Definitely not stoned. Lamb or Mike Williams? It's tough. Mike Williams is more of a boom or bust type guy. And I think all of us would be feeling differently about CeeDee Lamb if he caught that wide open touchdown and I think he finished with like 7 for 80 last week, but if he finished 8 for 130, 140 and 2 touchdowns, everyone would be playing CeeDee Lamb. So I probably go CeeDee Lamb this week. Wentz or Mariota. Penny or Schultz. Penny. Wait, hold on. Tiered PPR 0.5, 1, 1.5. I'm assuming that 1 is the running back, right? And then 1.5 is tight end. Maybe it changes things. Dalton Schultz. Who gets the touchdown, Sills or Richie James? I don't know, man. David Sills. And the reason I say that, at West Virginia, David Sills was a touchdown monster. Let's see. Let me pull up his stats. 2017, David Sills had 18 receiving touchdowns. 2018, David Sills had 15 receiving touchdowns. He's 6'3", 211. Richie James is like, I believe, smaller than that. Yeah, 5'9", 185. Give me the bigger receiver that scores the touchdown. I like Richie James, but either one of them have a good chance to score a touchdown this week. Jamal Williams or Khalil Herbert. Jamal Williams. Season long, you take Mariota over non-primetime Kirk. Kirk Cousins is not a name that I've even looked up because he's not on any DFS slate this week. But Cousins, I do have a projection for him, so I can answer this. I have Mariota slightly ahead of him. But Mariota is more risky. So I think the defense that he plays is going to be easier. Going up against a Cleveland team that's pretty banged up compared to New Orleans, and who knows how like you go on these overseas games, and is it still a primetime game over there? I don't know. Power Grid, I like the Allen Diggs stack. I still like it. GPPs, I like it a lot. Cash game is a little less because of some of the weather things and just overall value. Like DraftKings, I think it's more reasonable because of some of the Zay Joneses and some of those 4K guys, but FanDuel, it's a little tougher. Any big injury news yet? No. I mean, some guys that we're monitoring, Christian McCaffrey. We know about the Detroit and Chicago situations. Cordero Patterson we're interested in, but yeah, see. Kirk is a lineup lock until further notice. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Glad you find it helpful. PPR tight end premium need one this week for my second flex spot. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Conklin, Algier, or Ramondre. I'm not doing Tyler Algier. I don't think I am, at least. Tyler Algier. Yeah. Unless Cordero Patterson's out, then maybe. Like, then I could potentially be convinced. Conklin, maybe? No. Tight end questions are tough because I don't really play in a lot of them. It's either CEH or Conklin. Like, if you want the tight end, I won't kill you. Still says an easy matchup. Cecil Lammy. This is my show. I love Cecil, but my show. Don't know who to start at flex. Robinson, Patterson, or Connor. Well, we need to see what Patterson's health is going to be. And if he's healthy, then which healthy is different than playing, I'd probably go Robinson either way. Full PPR need one wide receiver: Dobbs, Dortch, Judy, Godwin, Moore. Need to see if Godwin's playing, so that should be announced overnight, I would think. It's probably Jerry Judy, but no matter who I give up, no matter who I say, like, they're all so close that I'm probably not going to land on the most optimal. Rondale Moore I'm not playing because I don't know his role. Greg Dortch I'm not playing because I don't know Rondale Moore's role. And Romeo Dobbs, like, yeah, he had one good game last week, but is he all of a sudden going to start breaking out? I don't think so. I would rather play Judy until I feel like he's a better receiver, but the difference between all of those guys isn't that significant. Would I accept Antonio Gibson for Olave? Sure. Yeah, sure. Any chance Justin Herbert gets steamed? I'm assuming you mean steamed. You're saying heavily rostered. There's a chance. I have him right now at 9%. Like, is he going to get to 20+%? No quarterback is this week. Could he get to 13, 14, 15? If the weather's awful on the East Coast, then you could see him get up to 15 to 20, but anything above that, I don't anticipate. Yeah, if you guys can smash the like button, that would be helpful. I hope there's more than 6 there. All right, 4 more minutes. Get your questions in, and we will see everyone next week once we get to 10 o'clock, and then or if there's no more questions, then we can certainly end early. I have no issue doing that. Vikings, Carolina, Arizona, or New England, or Cleveland. Kind of like the Vikings tomorrow. Like, some of these London games have been blowouts, and like Andy Dalton, do we really trust? I don't know. Maybe. Carolina has looked horrible this year. Arizona has 2 sacks on the year. Cleveland, with no Clowney and no Myles Garrett, I don't know that I can do that. And then the Patriots going up against Green Bay. Do I really want to take a defense against Aaron Rodgers? Give me Minnesota. All right. No questions. So we will end 3 minutes early, and I'll see if I don't even know if Georgia won or lost, but they could still be playing. They are winning though, so it looks like they're going to hold on. Unfortunate. All right, one more. Worried about Jonathan Taylor and cash. I think there's risk. The price reflects that risk though. So $8,700 is a really, really, really good price for Jonathan Taylor, and the matchup's pretty good too. So, like, they know they need to run the ball. They're not like, we all know it. They know it. They're going to. But part of it's been their offensive line has not been 100% healthy. Like Ryan Kelly, their centers had issues. So that always plays a bit of a role. I'm playing Jonathan Taylor. Like, I think he's incredibly. We would all be kicking ourselves if he has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns at $8,700. It's a great price. Josh Reynolds and Dobbs in PPR. Josh Reynolds, FanDuel, Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, Penny, or D. Smith, Devontae Smith. Yeah, give me Aaron Jones. Jeff Wilson or Ramondre. Jeff Wilson, Judy or Ayuk in the flex. I don't really love either, but give me Brandon Ayuk, I guess. Would I go Lockett or Sutton? Lockett or Sutton? I'm gonna go Cortland Sutton. I have him slightly higher than Lockett. He's been consistent. Someone mentioned Cecil Lammey earlier. He's a Broncos beat reporter, and he has been talking up Cortland Sutton about him being the number 1 guy in Denver. So I trust my guy. Gino or Mariota? Mariota. And with that, it is 10 o'clock, so I am going to cut it off. One more here. Lockett or Sanders, full PPR. Give me the running back. And John, I can't answer that question at 10 o'clock, man. That's a 5 to 7 minute question, and we'll never get out of here. So we'll talk about that next week. Or message me on Twitter. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will see everyone next week. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for hanging out. Best of luck tomorrow, and hope everyone wins a lot of money. Thanks, everybody.